advisory for Florida over DeSantis' aggressive attempts to erase Black history. The 100-year-old plus civil rights organization has warned that the state is, quote, openly hostile towards African Americans, people of color, and LGBTQ plus individuals, end quote. Black astronaut says lunar mission will be major accomplishment in American history. Victor Glover is part of a 4-member crew that will orbit the moon in NASA's Artemis II mission, scheduled for November of this year, November of 2024. And a high school sophomore in Missouri was suspended 3 days after she recorded her teacher last week using a racist slur in the classroom, prompting the teenager's lawyer and mother to demand that the district apologize and expunge the suspension from her record. Brian Kohlberger was arraigned today for the murder of 4 students. He was arraigned on 4 counts of first-degree murder and burglary for the stabbing death of Iowa college students. Prosecutors have not revealed any information about a motive or whether there was any connection between Kohlberger and the 4 victims. They have 60 days in which to determine if they will seek the death penalty. Roe v. Wade's demise last summer initially triggered a 6-week ban in South Carolina, 6-week abortion ban. After legal challenges, however, the state Supreme Court found it to be unconstitutional, kicking off an internal GOP feud that to this date remains unresolved. GOP women legislators are sounding more like Democrats in attacking their Republican colleagues for their extremist position on abortions. In a new play, a writer tackles a touchy topic, Black class conflict. Good Bones, James Imus' serial comedy about the tensions gentrification can set off in the Black community. The story is about a rich Black couple who moves into a redeveloped city block unprepared for the bad karma they instigate. This play is getting a vibrant world premiere at Studio Theater. A noisy late night block party prompts a complaint to police that causes more troubling consequences than the couple anticipated. Some say this could be a viral news story rather than a theater play. This is Areva Martin in Real Time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. I'm joined today by 2 brilliant contributors, immigration attorney Alan Orr and Chris Scott, who is a Democratic strategist. And in hour 2, we are talking about how to talk about race in the workplace, really asking the question, can you even talk about race without offending white employees? I have 2 DEI experts and a professor at the Wharton School of Business who will join me to help us understand what the state of DEI is, that's diversity, equity, and inclusion, in most American corporations. And what's this thing about not talking about race? But before I bring on my guests, I want to talk about something that happened on Sunday. Yes, yesterday. Yesterday, the nonprofit that I started about 15 years ago hosted its 15th anniversary gala. It's called the Pink Pump Extravaganza. It was held at the Beverly Hilton Hotel in Beverly Hills, and 500 plus phenomenal women, including several of the KBLA talk show hosts, and a few men were out celebrating women. And that's women who have been breaking glass ceilings for the last 15. And we were raising money for autism and other developmental disabilities for kids who live in underserved and under-resourced communities. I had the good fortune and opportunity to host a conversation with multi-award-winning actress Alfre Woodard and award-winning director and actress Sally Richardson Whitfield. You all know Sally from her great work on HBO's Gilded Age and Winning Time. This was an incredible opportunity to hear from these 2 powerful women about what they feel about breaking glass ceilings and what they've done in their own careers to avoid some of the obstacles and, how they've overcome many of the obstacles that most women face in the workplace, particularly those working in the white male-dominated entertainment space. Those 2 women, Sally and Alfie, shared a lot of wisdom, and I want to share with you some of the pearls, some of the nuggets that I gleaned from having an opportunity to interview them on what we call the Pink Couch. Well, first thing that Alfie talked about was the importance of living in the moment. I think that's such a powerful statement. Many of us gloss over that as we are running from event to event or next assignment or next job or next thing on our list. We often forget the importance of living in the moment, taking time, slowing down, smelling the roses, whatever you call it. Alfre Woodard is very much a proponent of acknowledging the little things, the small things in your environment and finding joy in them. She also talked about not letting other people define you. And this came up in the context of me asking her about her activism. I actually got to spend a lot of time with Alfre when we were both campaigning for now Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass. And I asked her, did she ever worry that by, supporting Democratic candidates, she could be alienating some of her fan base? And she said, not really, Areva. She said, I just do what I'm led to do. And I hope that my fans understand that I'm a person with feelings and I have political views and I'm free to act on my views and to support those candidates who I believe are going to be, the best in the job. So she said she had no qualms about her activism and in fact has been an activist much longer than she has been a multi-award winning actress. Both Alfre and Sally also talked about the importance of showing up every day as your authentic self. It's been a lot of conversation over the last couple of years about authenticity and showing up as who you are. We know as Black women that can sometimes be difficult, whether it's because of the way we wear our hair or how we dress or even sometimes how we talk. We often have to code shift. We often have to change our hair and our attire to fit what are traditionally European societal norms or what corporate America sometimes define as what the corporate culture or corporate dress is. But both of these women say that they've been successful in their careers by not being bound by those rules and those norms that have been set by others, but by working very hard every day to show up as their authentic selves. And Alfie, if you ever spend any time with her, just instantly that she definitely lives by that mantra. And the last piece of advice I'll share with you, this is a piece that really, really resonated with me. If you've ever been to any of my lectures or keynote addresses, or you've read any of my books, I talk a lot about my Midwestern values and the importance of working hard and how I learned the importance of a strong work ethic from my godmother and my grandmother. Now, Sally Richardson Whitfield is also from the Midwest. She hails from Chicago. So she talked a lot about how she's in touch with those things that she's good at, things that she's not so great at. But one of the things that she always ensures that she does is she shows up. She gives 110%. And she basically says that no one's going to outwork her. No one in that studio, no one that's working on that movie project or that TV project. She's going to be there and she's going to always show up. And again, if you know me, if you work for me, if you read anything that I've ever written, you know that that's how I try to live my life. And I frequently say to people, you might be smarter than me, you may have more money, you might look better, you may be a lot of things, but harder working than me? I don't think so. So again, congratulations to all of the folks, the 500 amazing folks who showed up on Sunday. Thank you so much to all of our sponsors. Thank you for Tavis Smiley, the owner of KBLA. He was in the house. It was just a wonderful opportunity to celebrate women, to celebrate the work of this organization that is changing the lives of individuals with autism and other special needs and raising money for our children to ensure that each and every child has their opportunity to live their best life. When we come forward, more of today's trending news and expert analysis right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in at Tavis Smiley, weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580.
Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
Tell me I'm the boy that girl.
I'm young, gifted, and black.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
All right, we are back, and in this hour, I'm joined by Alan Orr and Chris Scott. Thanks so much to both of you for joining me. I want to talk about Senator Tim Scott, South Carolina, announced that he is running for president. And I actually sat down this morning. I was on my computer, and I noticed that it was coming on, and they actually played on some of the cable networks his speech where he announced to the world that he's running for president. I just started taking some notes on some of the things he said, Alan and Chris, and these are some of the slogans that Tim Scott, Senator Scott, said. He said, "Less CRT, more ABC. America is not a racist country. Destroy the liberal lie that America is an evil nation. Stop the liberal assault on religious institutions. From Cotton to Congress. I, meaning Tim Scott, disrupt the narrative of the Democrats. Victimhood or victory. Reclaim our nation." I kind of felt like I was listening to a good old fiery speech by a Black Baptist minister. A lot of platitudes, a lot of slogans. I don't know, looks like he's been studying Jesse Jackson or something, but not much on substance. And I just kept sitting there thinking, what is this for? Why on earth is Tim Scott running for president? And Chris Scott, no relation to Tim Scott. I'll start with you. What is Tim Scott doing?
I don't know. That had to be one of the most interesting, eclectic campaign launches I've ever seen. But I think we've had this discussion a few times. There's no room for a Tim Scott really in this Republican Party. It's nice he got to announce he's doing something, but I think that's just where it stopped. I don't see him breaking even 2% in this primary field. At the end of the day, we know what everybody in the GOP is looking for, and they're looking for DeSantis versus to decide who's going to be their nominee. This is just, entertainment the ride of their circus primary.
Well, it was truly that, Chris. It was rather entertaining. He has this style. Sometimes he gets really loud. He screams. He goes into the crowd. He starts kind of, amping the crowd up, shaking his fist in the air. He has all of these little sayings like, less CRT, more ABC, all these like rhymes. I thought I was listening, to Jesse Jackson back in the 80s. Alan, what do you make of Tim Scott? And I think one of the things that a lot of it bugged me, but the thing that bugged me the most was this narrative that he has where he holds himself out to the world and says, look at me, I'm a Black man and my grandfather picked cotton and I've gone from one generation from the cotton field to Congress. And if I can do it, you too can do it. And that's why he says he's disrupting the narrative that somehow African Americans don't have opportunities in this country. And he kept making reference to this being the greatest country in the world with the greatest opportunities and blah, 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 blah about his own personal story. Do you think, Alan, that's going to resonate with voters?
It might have resonated with the folksy crowd that he had there. It was very folksy, haughty, kind of bring my mama up, bring my mama's friend up. See, they're Black and white, everybody's friends. So it was a little bit of a comedy show for me. I didn't find it quite as interesting or as intriguing. And, it might have also been able for him to sort of cover up some of the things that generally happen in a presidential election, like where's your wife, where's your kids, right? All those things. There's only been 2 presidents that were single. So he might have been doing a little bit of a dance pony with that. But the exceptional Negro is always something that I think is really interesting to me. Him and Clarence Thomas, they have all done everything in the world. And I don't know why I can't do it. I should learn from the way they sort of struggled and pulled themselves up by themselves. But the interesting thing that I think about Tim Scott is he didn't bring anybody else with him, right? And that's what I find most interesting about the Republican Party. And, being a former Republican and, being a Black Republican at that, you don't see him with this big cadre of Black Republicans standing around him in his cohort.
But let me ask you this, Alan. They had said that Senator Thune was had endorsed and was supposed to be there. So I was really kind of watching to see if Thune would be on the stage with him, but he wasn't, at least the part they showed on television. Did he ever make an appearance, do you know?
I didn't see him.
Yeah.
I saw his friends from down the way, and some of them looked paid, but that's okay. That's just my perception, being Southern as it may. But it did not move me in that way. And I think that that's what people should look to his record. He's been in the Senate a long time. And so why now? What do you have to offer? What are you changing? And he says, I'm the great guy in the middle, but every bill he worked in the middle didn't pass. So I'm going to need you. What have you done since you've been there? What have you done for me lately? And then specifically when he sort of talks about this race issue that doesn't exist, then why are those so many issues in the news about race? It can't be in somebody's head, and why are you ignoring people? So that's where I don't feel like he's being real. And it never really attracts me for someone with a lot of money, maybe our brother Ice Cube, to get somewhere and say, listen, I don't know what your problem is. They haven't done anything for anybody when you have all the liability and all the money to have all those options. So it doesn't work the same when you're not speaking for people on the other side. And I just think he can't relate.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Ice Cube. I didn't bring it up in my opening because some of this news, I don't even know if I want to make bigger than it is. But I woke up this morning to a friend who is a avid Twitter follower. She sent me a gazillion tweets and said they had been dragging Cube all weekend. And of course, people were tweeting that the Republicans have their little, their little cadre of Negroes that they pay, that's the implication, out bashing Harris and Biden, and we should just wait on it because Killer Mike will be next, and it's a whole list of them. Chris, why? Why do we keep seeing this? It doesn't work. I mean, they may peel off a few Black men, but for the most part, these guys don't have the kind of cachet in the Black community where anyone's listening to them and following them in terms of how they vote.
So I don't even think it's so much what they're trying to get out of Black voters. I think it's more so what can they put out there that's going to stick, that's also going to get their base amped up. I think their base loves to see what they would call Black on Black crime to a degree. And look what Ice Cube said, look what Killer Mike said, even they feel like that. And so, yeah, you might get a few Black voters, but that's really going to get their own base amped up to go out there when they have those type of voices. And that's one thing I hate to say, they do a good job at getting their voices out there to set the narrative that they want to be said and told in the elections.
Well, Well, obviously, they both have really big platforms. They have a big microphone, and they can definitely use that to amplify their messages. And I guess we should put Charlemagne the God in there as well, Alan. Let's throw him in the mix.
Front of the list, number one.
Front of the list. Somebody, they were clowning him because his show got canceled on Comedy Central. We're never going to celebrate when folks get, fired. Unemployment is never good for anybody, but
he'll be okay though. God speak to him.
He'll be fine, of course. But I just curious because Vice President Harris has gone on his show. She's had, they kind of had their little scuffle actually on his show. So I don't get what it is. Cube, wouldn't meet with the Harris-Biden team, but he met with Jared Kushner and Trump's senior advisors. Is it just attention? Or they just, sometimes I feel like certain African Americans will line up. I'm thinking of the Chicago mayor's race. I have to imagine that sometimes they feel like, well, I won't get enough attention if I just go with the Democratic candidate because they already have their quote unquote, Negroes in place. So if I go over here with the other team, I'll be that, as you called it, exceptional Negro. So I'm wondering how much of it is just that. Like, let me go where I can be lauded and I can be, put on a pedestal, even though what I'm saying is so detrimental to my community.
Yeah, I think that's a interesting concept. I think of early on in my career, when I had somebody, a Black woman in the Republican Party, actively try to recruit me. And she's like, look, you're slow moving up in the Democratic Party. Come here. You'll be exceptional here. You'll move up the ranks quickly. And that's what they tried to sell to convince Black folks to come over to the Republican Party. Because I think even with the conservative nature on some things that Black people have, overall, when you look at the surface and the depth, who is actually still pushing for the things that we like versus you got Republicans attacking African-American studies. They're repealing voting rights. They're repealing abortion rights. Everything that is sacred to our community, they're actively attacking. So the only way you can really get a Black person, honestly, I think, to carry that message is to offer them something that they're not going to get anywhere else.
Yeah, it becomes really transactional. Right, they feel like they can. But look at Tim Scott, Alan. He maybe got that. He became, quite the poster boy for the Republican Party, but they're not falling behind him. As you said, nobody was out there on that podium with him today. There wasn't a whole line of Republican leaders, be it Senate leaders who he served with for years, or be it other Republican leaders. Where were they? His nephew introduced him. Like you said, he called up his mama and some friend. That's not typically what you want to do when you're launching a national presidential campaign. You want to, come out strong, roll out a bunch of endorsements and show I'm the real, I'm the real deal here. So by being the exceptional Negro, that doesn't always get you, the kind of popularity, respect, or loyalty, I should even call it, from this party, from this Republican Party.
Yeah, but it gets him to be the distractor. That's the one thing about being the representation in the room sometimes. It allows you to say that I am not racist. This party is not racist. Look, I'm Black, I'm here, they love me. I'm having this conversation, I'm involved in this conversation. So he gets to run for Ben Carlson's old position of being, yeah, there's a Black person in the room. Here he is, he's our friend, he's a Republican, we can trust him, he shares our values. Gifted hands, the whole sort of story of this sort of like American dream where they fantalized that racism and having enslaved people didn't do anything to build their wealth in this country. They did it all by themselves, right? They bought that house when they dropped out of high school and they had all that land. So that fiction, that Southern fiction that people have, that they just did this all by themselves is so weird to me. I mean, look at our former President Trump, who will tell you he built the wealth on his own when his daddy gave him the money.
Well, and now we realize with Clarence Thomas, he has a billionaire benefactor, right? So if somebody's paying for his mama's house, paying for the tuition of his adopted son, paying for all of his extravagant vacations. So this notion that even he pulled himself up by his bootstrap is such hypocrisy and such lunacy is really what it is. So we have to really make sure that we're not falling prey to these talking points. I had a friend of mine that lives in Florida say, that saying that everybody likes to say, well, Biden ain't done nothing for Black folks. And I had to write her a book on text and say, please don't say that. And I wanted to say as gently as I can, you sound unintelligent. Like there are too many things that we can point to, starting with that judge that's on the Supreme Court that no one else has done. If you don't think he's done anything else, here is the receipt for that. And of course, the list goes on. That money, remember that money you got, those checks everybody got? That was Biden. And this, her comment was odd. She says he's favoring Asians. I was like, what? No.
Get a friend, get a friend.
I know, read a book. Get a friend and read a book. Oh, so that's what we're about to go into. As you said, we're about to go into election season. That's what the challenge is. We got a lot of work to do. When we come forward, we're going to talk about this NAACP travel advisory. Is Florida now dangerous for Black folks? And what about this student in this Missouri school that's been suspended for catching this teacher using the N-word on tape? Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4, only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search, but we are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody.
That's right.
Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on?
Free enterprise, you dig?
KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
King Kong ain't got on me.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580.
Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
Tell me I'm the boy that girl. I'm young, gifted, and black.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of Black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of Black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring Black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Your black. Your black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest spot, shot with a rest spot, shot with a rest spot.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
Bounce is back.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head. Yeah.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety.
All right, we are back, and I am joined in this hour with Alan Orr. He's an immigration attorney, and Democratic strategist Chris Scott. I want to talk about this sophomore, the student in high school in Missouri, who has been suspended for 3 days after she recorded her teacher last week of using, they say, a racist slur, but what we know from reading the story is that the teacher used the N-word multiple times. The student pulled out a phone and recorded the teacher. There is a policy at the school in its handbook that prohibits students from recording their teachers. So student is suspended. The family goes out, hires a lawyer, Alan, and they are demanding that the district apologize and expunge the suspension from the student's record. They're calling this news. They're saying, in essence, this student was acting as a news reporter rather than a student because of the language that this teacher was using in the classroom that was so offensive, not only to her, but to the other students. What do you make of this story and the way the school is handling it?
So, yeah, I mean, this is a difficult one based on procedure, right? Because the procedure is what we're arguing now about the phone. And if the had recorded it, could have still made the same thing, could have said the teacher said these things, could have been validated by the class, might have reached the same result. So, you know, it's a hard one. I think the school needs to go away from they need to look at a revision of this rule because this is a consideration, right? Something to say that we need to do an accommodation for this instance because the school is at fault for having that teacher in there in the first place. They should have done a better job of screening. So, I mean.
Yeah, as a lawyer, obviously, my mind thinking just like yours, like, well, there is a rule, and in order to have order at a school, right, to have students comport with the rules, you know, you have to have punishments if you break those rules. But this seems to be such a unique exception, where you would think the rule would have some flexibility and the student wouldn't be suspended because in essence, she did the school a solid. She helped this school out a really unfit teacher. And of course, now the teacher's no longer working with the district, but she is fighting to have this suspension removed from her record. Now, obviously, the school is probably thinking, well, if we make this exception, then the rule carries no weight. Yes, slippery slope. And then the next person.
Martin Luther King was in jail, Birmingham letter.
Yep. The next student that records, are we going to make an exception? Now we don't really have a rule. It's a case-by-case basis. So it is a little tricky, but to think that this teacher, I'm trying to, Chris, get with, why is this teacher in the classroom with high school students? Not, these are very smart, sophisticated people. If you're in high school, you're in the sophomore year, you're 16 years old. Did the teacher think that administration wasn't going to learn about this kind of conduct?
You have a policy that students can't pull out a cell phone and record, it's your word versus the student word. Of course, I think the teacher thought they would get away with it. Unfortunately, I think it's similar to what we see sometimes with police and people that really have no business policing out there, have no type of education, having, dealt with anybody, a person of color, yet they're still the one in charge. And so I think just with everything, we have to do a better job at looking at who is actually put in positions of power, especially when it has to do with our children.
Our young people. So kudos to the school for obviously acting very quickly to remove this teacher from the classroom, but I hope they can reach some kind of compromise with this student's record, because this could impact college admissions, could impact scholarship opportunities and other opportunities that this student may have. But I'm glad to see the parents are at least standing up and fighting and not just giving in to the school's rule. What do you think about Florida? Alan, when NAACP issues a travel advisory, what should Black folks around this country do? And what about the folks that live in Florida that are already there?
Right. So it's a difficult one. So we're having our immigration conference in Orlando this year, and we're confronted with all of the Florida issues, from LGBT, school, women, the whole gambit of everything. DeSantis is one day going to be a casebook in constitutional study and law of everything that you can violate. And I think what the NAACP did, and I didn't study the case before that sort of led to them not calling for boycotts on cities anymore, that went to the Supreme Court, that almost cost them a lot of money in the past, that happened in Mississippi in the day. So they sort of issue these travel advisories to tell people as a signal to say, you might want to reconsider where you're spending your money. I think that's the way they sort of do it. And they didn't do it alone, right? So the Latino community also, tons of Latino organizations also issued the same travel advisory, and LGBT groups are just behind them, also going to say, Florida might not be the place you want to go to sort of have these safeties.
Well, let me ask you this, Alan. I don't assume you are the decision maker with respect to this conference, but why is your immigration conference going to Florida in light of how Florida has behaved?
It's booked 5 years in advance. So it would be a shot in the foot financially to move it at this point when we have 44,000 attorneys coming there. And we're not going there to vacation. We're going to train lawyers how to fight against what's going on in Florida in immigration rules and laws. We're also doing tons of activist events on the ground, registering people to vote, naturalization clinic, educating people on the new Florida rules, right? Which I also wanted to say, because I'm an immigration attorney, that there has not been an invasion. So people know that was all bullcrap from the very beginning about people coming across the borders and all that other stuff. And Mayorkas and all that stuff was sort of just drama that does not exist.
But Chris, wouldn't someone like DeSantis get the message? And I hear what Alan is saying, so I'm not knocking his organization. Obviously, if you plan a conference 5 years in advance, there are logistical and financial nightmares associated with moving it. I get that. But wouldn't DeSantis conduct himself differently if he started to feel the economic brunt of his actions? If you had major conferences like this immigration conference and others pulling out of the state or refusing to take their business to the state, do you think that would change how he is approaching these culture wars?
Absolutely not. I think DeSantis has already showed us who he is. I think he's a diet version of Donald Trump, just more boring. I mean, the man is literally waging war with Disney right now, the biggest boost to your economy. And I think that says it right there. For him, he's just the level of emboldenedness that I think we've seen with him scares me a lot to even imagine somebody like that being the Republican nominee. I don't care how much we hit his pocketbooks. He does not care at this point. This is all pageantry, political stunt, and he really believes the stuff that he's doing. And somebody like that, you can't change or reason with.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, although I don't think I'm convinced that if he started to have major dollars being withdrawn from that economy, that he would not feel pressure from those other Republicans in that state legislature, other Republican business owners, to, even if it's quietly, to start changing his tune. Because at the end of the day, a lot of these folks are there in Florida. They run big companies. They're trying to make money. They don't want to be embroiled in these culture wars. They want to attract the best and the brightest in college students. So this is impacting students who may be thinking of going there, bringing their talents to work in Florida. And I think some kind of, I don't know what's
he didn't react big to the Disney thing last week, though. Remember last week, Disney said they weren't, and that's sort of speculative. I understand that they weren't doing it right away. But, when they pulled that out, you didn't see him come back and sort of regurgitate any of his words.
And I don't think it's going to be immediate like that. Obviously, the guy has a big ego. And so when these guys, back themselves into a corner like this is what's happening with the debt limit discussions. There's some breaking news on that. Is when they take these entrenched positions, then you got to figure out, how do I get out of that position, compromise, and do what's best for my constituents, or even what's best for my own political future, while at the same time save face. So that's what's on the line right now for Kevin McCarthy. In some ways, it's on the line for Joe Biden. And that's what politicians are always weighing, the constituents and their own political, legacy, or in this case, legacy for Biden, but career advancement for someone like DeSantis, because, being governor of Florida, he needs Republican backers. He needs those big corporations pouring into that campaign. And if they're like, dude, you're costing us billions of dollars, then they are not going to make those kinds of investments. And his candidacy for presidency will be DOA. Yeah. So I'd like to see some of these Republican businesses really start to hold his feet to the fire. And not that he would change because he cares about the citizens. He just has a race to win, and you can't win the race. You can't be the candidate unless you raise, close to $1 billion, if not more than $1 billion. When we come forward, we're going to talk about this play that's dealing with Black class issues, not something we talk a whole lot about. We're going to tackle it right here on the Areva Martin in real time. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
Gifted and black.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of Black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of Black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring Black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Connection established. Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for Black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of Black audiences are concerned about the lack of Black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the Black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% Black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your Black. Your Black. Your Black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my House shot with a red spot. Shot with a red spot. Shot with a red spot.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
Bounce is back.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head.
This is a rather bold.
All right, there's some breaking news that the conversation, talk, debate, whatever you want to call it, summit, I guess is a better word, between Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, and President Joe Biden has not resulted in any agreement over the crisis that is about to impact our entire country and the world's economy in 10 days. Alan, do you remain at all hopeful that there is going to be some kind of agreement reached between the president and the Speaker of the House regarding the debt limit negotiations?
So I'm radical on this point. I think it's time to go 14th Amendment and forget the conversation. Let's do the litigation. Let's just skip the games, because we know there's no Kevin. There's the people behind him, the puppets behind him pulling strings. We know who made the debt. The record's clear that it was the Republican Party. I was part of that. The Reagans started it off, right? I was a Reagan Republican. So the debt we increased, continue to build on the debt. Every time a Democrat solved it, we raised it back up again. And every time with the Trump administration raising it 25%, every time Congress was behind them, regardless of the party. So if we want to talk about the budget, let's pass this and then draft the budget. They don't even have a budget or a platform to stand on where the cuts are coming from. And they're suggesting that they go and sacrifice the poor people. So I say, did we have this conversation when we were talking about Barrett getting on the court? All this compromising that we always talk about is always at the cost of the Democrats. So I say, stop it. Let's see what happens with the 14th Amendment. Take me to court. Fine.
All right. And a lot of Democrats are urging Biden to do just that. But Chris, we know Joe Biden tends to be a little more methodical, hesitant to use what could be considered these nuclear options. What do you think is likely to happen?
You know, I think they eventually reach an agreement. I feel like we go through this every few years or so. I just hate when it happens right before a presidential cycle, because it just becomes more theatrics for everything. I do agree with Alan. It'd be nice to see them invoke the 14th. I don't see Biden taking that option, especially heading into the election cycle. I think he's going to play it more middle of the road, cautious. It's just unfortunate because we already know what Kevin McCarthy is angling at holding, you know, the debt and the debt ceiling and everything hostage at this point.
Yeah, obviously there's going to be some, I can't imagine that there's not some compromise, even if it's what the plan now is, at least there's some talks that the plan may be to agree to limit spending in the future, some cap on future spending, but allows them to reach some deal today so that we don't allow our debt to not be paid. Obviously, Social Security, Medicare, there's so many benefits at stake, and not just in the U.S. economy, the whole world. And there's also some breaking news, Alan, regarding E. Jean Carroll. You know, so she won her civil lawsuit, $5 million judgment against Donald Trump for sexual assault and defamation. Trump, the next day, goes on CNN, makes comments about that civil verdict, and now E. Jean Carroll is saying, I'm assuming she now is seeking new damages from Trump based on his comments that he made on CNN. Right. What do you make of that?
I think it's good legal strategy. She has great lawyers. We're going to see these financial returns that Trump finally has, that he says he has all this money. Let's see how much money it really takes to make him follow the law, because clearly it wasn't enough. It is proven on television, on CNN, willfully. So good for her for going back to the trough.
Yeah, apparently, you know, I guess that was May 10th, Trump went on CNN, this town hall. He echoed his earlier denials. He called her account fake and a made-up story. Despite, again, this photo that showed them together, he claimed that he had never met E. Jean Carroll, called her a whack job, and said the civil trial was a rigged deal. So she filed papers today arguing that his statements show the depth of his malice. It's hard to imagine defamatory conduct that could possibly be more motivated by hatred, ill will, or spite. She says this conduct supports a very substantial punitive damages award in her favor to punish Trump and to deter him. Talking, Chris, about not being deterred, you said you don't think Ron DeSantis will be deterred by much of anything. Will Donald Trump ever be deterred by civil judgments? You know, that's $5 billion. Some people said that wasn't enough. Maybe she goes into court and gets $100 million or $100 million plus. Is anything going to deter this guy from just talking smack against this woman?
I mean, Trump is as worse as they come. I don't think he even knows what the word deterrent means. After this point, the only thing that will deter him is putting him in a jail cell at this point, which I don't think we're going to ever even get that. But yeah.
I don't know. We know, Alan, civil damages is not the same as jail time in a criminal case, but civil damages can be quite impactful. Think about tobacco.
Absolutely.
Think about the auto bill manufacturing industry. So we've seen some massive.
Think about my McDonald's apple pie. No, that was
changes, right? These are corporations, so they got shareholders that they're answering to. A little different than Donald Trump, who's not answering to anyone.
But what I don't know, so I'm not good on this part of the procedure. Like, I don't know if she's amending. So I don't know if the verdict is final yet, because there's always the judge issues it, and then there's a time period before it's actually filed with the court to actually turn over the money. If she's able to if it's able to sort of go in back immediately, or if she has to go back through the whole process again to sort of get to that end. I don't know how long the process takes to get there. The thing that you said about Trump is most important. He is the worst client to have, right? I have those clients all the time that you just say, don't say anything. That's the best. Don't talk about it. Don't look. If they ask you something, your answer is, I don't know. I don't remember. All this. That's where you sort of, he needs good coaching. But he has gotten away with for so long that what this has done is it has broken the armor. This is a small space in, once again, a little bit bigger on what Chris James started, and now it's sort of peeling away. So I'm hopeful that this is going to be his season of verdicts, and we're going to finally see something. I don't need him to go to jail. I just need him to not be able to run for president again.
Yeah, apparently she's going to try to amend her pending 2019 defamation action, seeing if the judge will let her go back in and add these CNN comments to that lawsuit. That lawsuit has not been fully litigated. That's a separate defamation action than the one that we just got that jury verdict on. So obviously they are not going to let Trump off the hook. I think, as you said, is a brilliant strategy by her lawyer. Every time he opens his mouth, slap him with the lawsuit, because we know that's what he would do if the shoe was on the other foot. Let's talk real quickly, though, about gentrification. So here's this play by award-winning playwright about a Black couple moving back into a neighborhood that is met with some issues because they call the police, and just it deals with class issues that are happening in Black communities all over this country: displacement, gentrification, conflict between folks who live in a community, some who maybe got stuck, those who moved out, but now who are moving back in, whether you call them yuppies or hipsters or whatever. Alan, is that something that's happening in Tennessee? I know you're there now. I have to imagine this is not limited to any part of the country.
I think so. I think it's more of a values issue, though, right? Because I'm in a neighborhood where everybody thinks a gun is something that you got to have, like a rake. And I'm not from that sort of capacity. And sort of it brings itself up in those conversations, as well as also noise and what people do on Sunday and, cutting your grass type of things. So I think it's a very important conversation to have, and a unique one to have in this sort of situation, in tribe, right? Or in group conversations.
Well, Chris, usually when people think about gentrification, they're thinking about white people moving back into Black neighborhoods. But that's not the only conflict that happens. Yeah. Sometimes you have wealthy, like this play, you have wealthy Black people moving into neighborhoods with Black people, but there is a class difference. There's a socioeconomic imbalance. So you have the folks coming in with their fancy sports cars, and they're completely remodeling. They're turning the two-family home into a mansion. and they are in conflict with neighbors who make less money and who have a different vision of what that neighborhood should look like. Don't have a lot of conversations about that. And somehow the gentrification conversation mostly gets painted as a Black-white issue.
Yeah, I think it's interesting as you see more Black Americans, I think, move towards the suburbs at rates that we haven't seen before. I think it's a conversation we're going to have more. And even with the ones that are moving back to the city, I think of my hometown, Detroit, of, you have people wanting to build and develop, but that definitely displaced the person that stayed on the block for 20 years that now can't afford it and still hasn't bought their house outright. So it's going to be an interesting conversation going forward. That's not just Black and white anymore, but really is class.
Yeah, definitely.
U Street experience in DC. That U Street experience with go-go music is a prime example. There were Black people who were saying, no late noise. I just paid $1 million for this condo. I don't know you're going to drop it hot here. Take your chili dog somewhere else.
Right. Block parties, noise, the car that they park on the grass, the folks who start changing, the oil on the street. There's so many issues that come up, in communities when you start having folks, different classes. But hey, that's what we fought for, right? Integration, not just racial integration, economic integration. So I hope this play is successful in at least helping to raise some of these issues. Thank you so much, Alan. Thank you so much, Scott. Chris Scott and Alan Orr. Always a pleasure to have both of you join me when we come forward on KBLA. We're going to talk about some race issues and how do you talk about race at work without offending your coworkers, right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Gifted and black. At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent 10,000